Hello, everyone, and welcome to Freedom Worldwide, presented by Atlas Network. I'm Tom G. Palmer, Executive Vice President of Atlas Network, and today we're visiting with regional experts and Atlas Network partners in Taiwan to discuss the defense of freedom in that country, especially in the face of aggression from the Communist Party on the mainland. Now, before I introduce our two informed and insightful guests, for those of you who are new to Atlas Network, we're a nonpartisan, nonprofit organization that's dedicated to supporting local idea entrepreneurs who are advancing liberty in their countries and communities. We support a network of more than 500 independent pro-liberty organizations in 103 countries, with training, grants, and mentorship with colleagues from around the globe. We don't take any taxpayer money, and we never will. And that means that our work relies entirely on voluntary donations from people like you. So if you haven't yet given to Atlas Network, consider joining us with a gift of $25 or more, and we'll send a physical subscription to Freedom's Champion magazine, which will be delivered to your door by a uniformed agent of the United States government. And you'll find a link to subscribe in the chat window today. So now let me introduce our two expert discussants. Chia Yu Tsai, we'll refer to her as Joy, is an assistant professor specializing in political economy at the National University of Kaohsiung in Taiwan. She does very important work in political economy, China research, media economics, and using advanced information processing tools to see how different groups are influencing public opinion, most notably from the mainland, from communist China. Yu Si Liu, we'll refer to as Lucy, is an associate professor of economics with a specialization in media economics at Xi'an University. So they span the two ends of the country of Taiwan. And she also focuses extensively on media economics and on information warfare. So welcome, Lucy and Joy, to this program. Let me just start then with the obvious, which is that Taiwan is a free and peaceful, tolerant, and prosperous society of about 24 million people who are very seriously threatened by the military and political might of a totalitarian state with a population of more than 1.4 billion people, and under the dictatorship of Xi Jinping, an increasingly aggressive stance globally. We'll get into the nature of both of those threats and the responses of the Taiwanese people. But first, I'd like to ask, how did Taiwan achieve becoming such a free and prosperous society? When I was growing up, I remember there was Communist China, totalitarian slave state, which it was, ruled by the Communist Party, and then Taiwan under the leadership of Kuomintang Party. And it seemed to people outside, well, it was free society versus slave society. I later came to understand a little bit more complicated than that, because the record of the KMT and the Chiang Kai-shek was not very liberal, not very democratic, and not free market at all. The achievements of liberal democracy and market economy were hard fought in Taiwan. They came later, and they were a result of struggle. So how did that happen, that Taiwan achieved such a high degree of freedom and prosperity?
Yes, so thanks to Tom, and I'm happy to be here to share my thoughts. And so, before you might think that Taiwan has been a democracy for 60 years, but that was not true. So actually, Taiwan is really a young democracy, and from 1949 to the 80s, it was still under the authoritarian rule under the Kuomintang, the KMT party. So could you show my first slides? Yeah. So actually, the turning point came in the 80s. So and it's very interesting that the democracy progress came with the economic liberalization. So when we went through the democracy progress, we also liberate our market, and we brought back our free market. So in the 60s, based on the U.S. request, so Taiwan started an agenda to the openness and the free markets. And only in the 80s, then it's reduced the import controls, and it's also lifted the foreign currency controls. So before the 80s, so people cannot buy foreign exchange freely, and it was really crazy. But in the 80s, we we have more economic freedom, and then in the 1989, and we have free market for interest rates and exchange rates. So those free market and openness are the milestone. And then we have our semiconductor manufacturing industry. Okay, so I don't know if I answer your question, Tom, or
Well, I think
you want me to introduce more
no,
about
this is
the
very,
market.
it's very helpful background in this context and the way in which democracy and market economy moved hand in hand to help to change the society. I know that one of the intellectual influences going back many years ago was Professor Hayek, who had such an impact around the world. His book, The Road to Serfdom, was so influential at turning the tide against totalitarianism. And he visited Taiwan on three occasions, so 1965, 1966, and then 1975, with David Cho, who had been one of his students in London, and also helped to translate the works of Hayek into Chinese. So there's been intellectual influences in Taiwan as well as in the mainland from classical liberal thinkers that seems to have tapered off, and now it's coming back. Could you talk a little bit about these changing waves of classical liberal thinking in Taiwan and also China?
Yes. I would like to say that Hayek has a very deep influence on Taiwan's economic development and the democracy progress. So in the 50s, then we had the books, the two important books, the Constitution of Liberty and the Road to Serfdom in Chinese. And we also had a study group, not me, but the people older than me, like they were very brave under the white terror. They still hold a secret study group, and they every 2 weeks, and some academics, and they came together to discuss Hayek's ideas. And actually, those was forbidden by KMT group, but the study group introduced Hayek ideas, and this group became a focal point for promoting liberty and democracy. It was in the 50s. And in the 81, and the two important economists, Jiang Shuojie and Xia Daoping, they followed Hayek principles, and they also had a voice. They had a voice in the society. So they started a debate, and they advocated for openness and freedom, and they gained more support. They gained a lot of support, which which brought the free market reform later. Okay, so actually it was a very it's so Hayek was so important to Taiwan and in the whole process. And in the 90s, and the economists also played an important role in the democracy and the the free market process. So I would say that after 2000s, economists in Taiwan are more into mathematics, and we were crazy for models, and we were crazy for statistics. We it seemed that we forgot Hayek a little bit, but now I can see the wave came back. Like we have a group of scholars, including economists or some entrepreneurs or some other scholars, maybe in sociology or the other field. We 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 would like to we would like to come back to the Hayek. So I think it was very meaningful, especially we were facing the challenge from China.
Let me ask then, Joy, one of the things that really stands out about Taiwan's economic performance that people focus on, and we'll come back to this in the context of defense of Taiwan, is the tremendous success of the semiconductor industry. So right now, I think the latest numbers I saw, about 65% of the semiconductors globally manufactured in Taiwan. That's just mind-boggling. And 90% of the most advanced
Yeah.
right there in Taiwan. And it's an amazing story. How did it happen that Taiwan became such a market leader in a crucially important industry?
Well, I think that part should be Lucy's part, but I would like
Okay.
to address a little bit about the economic miracle starting from the 1960s. And
Well,
I
let's
think
go to that then.
what? Well,
Yes, please address that.
yeah, because I think Hayek is important in terms of the thoughts about inspiring all these economists in Taiwan. But we shouldn't forget about the role of the United States as well, because we received that US aid during that period. And also because the Taiwanese government were persuaded by the United advisors to liberate the currency, because before it was like overvalued and hesitated to really depreciate the currency because they are afraid of hyperinflation that was experienced in the wartime. And after that, we follow the advice of the US advisors, and then that lead us to a more market-oriented system in 1958, and that leads the Taiwan to we focus more on exports after that. So I think that also contribute to the high economic growth during that period. So that's something I would like to add on. And probably Lucy, can you say a little bit about the semiconductor industry, how it started? I think
Yeah. So yeah, I agree with Joy. So actually, the role of the US is very important. So like in the 60s, so it was under the pressure of the United States, which pushed Kuomintang Party to start the democracy and also the free market process. And the semiconductor also, I would say that it came from the tie between the US and the Taiwan. And so the semiconductor industry started to grow because of I think because Taiwan has a lot of skilled labor. And the skilled labor came from our good institution, our good infrastructure. And also it's thanks to our freedom of speech and the property rights protection. So we have a lot of academic institutions and also the tech the the research development. So the highly educated, the well educated labor, I think they are the most important human capital to this industry.
Well, it's
So
an interesting example that this myth that it's natural resources that make a country wealthy, oil or gold or diamonds or something like that, when in fact, a country with very little natural resources, if it has human capital and good institutions, can become tremendously prosperous and successful. I think the Netherlands was one of the first examples of that, became one of the richest countries in the world, going back a few hundred years ago, and no oil, no gold, not even any land. They had to make land out of the sea. So the focus is on institutions and also human capital, ability to create wealth. I'd like to focus for a moment on the Taiwan Liberty Association. This is very exciting that now we have such an active group starting there. And I know it's not easy in this context. You have to get the participation of so many academics to be able to establish the foundation. Tell us a little bit about that and about your ambitious agenda.
Yes, so Joy and I, we hope to start an association which promotes free market and also the rule of law and also the independence idea. So this association, I would say the roots may come from Hayek, and also the so um, we have about 30 scholars and also the entrepreneurs here. But in the future, I think we will ask more to join. And this association, I think our goal is to protect Taiwan's freedom. I think it's the first priority. And I would say that now we have some challenges to our liberty. So the external challenge came from China because China poses a threat to our institution, to our society. They never gave up any military threat. And we also have some internal challenge. So our people, Taiwanese, some Taiwanese still have obsessions with big government. So I would say that some people still believe in big government. They believe that it's the central government planning which brings such a semiconductor industry, or the central government planning bring the economic growth. But it is not true. So our association hope to educate people that the free market, a good institution, is the most important thing. And we also raise public awareness of the advantage with a free market and also with a true democracy.
Well, one of the things that I'm excited about is the launch, the formal launch you're having with a seminar for students, intensive training programs, and a proper launch that's going to be this summer publicly. And I have to say, this really warms my heart. We're very proud to be affiliated with the Taiwan Liberty Association and to bring you in contact with people who believe in freedom from all around the world, from Indonesia, from Vietnam, from Brazil and Germany and Norway and United States and every place. This is very, very exciting to come in contact with our global colleagues on every continent. And I'd like to mention then, for those who are tuning in, that we have active partners. They're self-directed. They're not franchises. They don't take orders from us. They run their own programs. Our job is to be a service bureau, to help them and to strengthen the freedom movement globally and make those connections and provide training, resources, and grants. And so those of you who haven't yet donated to Atlas Network, think about it. Just a mere $25 or more will get you involved in this network and also bring our magazine, Freedom's Champion, directly to your door. Now, you mentioned, Lucy, some of the domestic threats. The one that gets more attention internationally is obviously the threat from the CCP, on the mainland and the dictatorship there. I noticed just recently that they had stopped using the term peaceful reunification, which is very ominous. That they're no longer even qualifying it with the word peaceful. And this makes my blood run a bit cold. So I'd like to ask about strategies for Taiwan to defend itself. I know that Taiwan has been increasing its domestic military spending for the purposes of being able to defend themselves, to make it too costly to an aggressor to attack you and to destroy your country and take away your freedom. What other mechanisms? So Joy, you had mentioned this idea of the silicon shield. Could you expand on that and other mechanisms to defend Taiwan?
Okay, absolutely. So I think I first have to define what is a silicon shield strategy. So silicon, that's related to the semiconductor industry. And like Adam said, Taiwan is the world leading manufacturer of semiconductor chips, and which is vital for electronics and everything from smartphones to electric cars, etc., essentially just everything. And we supply over 90% of the world's most advanced chips. And any disruption of this production could have ripple effects across the globe, including China. So that's how we hope, we wish that China, considering this interdependence of economic, will discourage them from taking any military action against Taiwan. So that's the strategy about silicon shield. We are also hoping that the international community will step inside because that will affect them as well. So that's the strategy of silicon shield.
There's also the porcupine strategy.
Yeah, we also have this porcupine strategy. Yeah, thank you for mentioning that.
Please describe that.
So the porcupine strategy is just a asymmetrical warfare, so to say. So although we double our defense budget, we have trying to increase our defense budget, and we have this. But we understand that China is the second highest military expense in the world. So we try to focus our money on weapons that are mobile, that is more cost effective, that is small, and so that's more flexible and easily hidden in case we face an invasion from China. So that's sort of the strategy of this porcupine strategy.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
When I was in Taiwan last time, I remember speaking with a number of academics. And one of the discussions was helping the population to become more able to arm themselves, to strengthen this porcupine model, where the state in Beijing would find it too difficult to digest Taiwan. It would not be like Hong Kong. Hong Kong is a warning to the world, very scary, because promises were made and then they only lasted a few years, and they got rid of every protection that had been promised in the handover. So we have a warning right there in Hong Kong. But if the population is capable of resisting, it makes it that much more costly, more difficult for China to attempt to take over and absorb the island. How is that going? Is there much more public discussion now of a citizenry that is aware and capable?
Yes, I think Taiwan, we have very strong civil communities, and it's enabled us to resist against any authoritarian governments. So like we have very strong civil defense groups, and actually it was not set by the government. It's totally
from the community,
it's totally
from
held.
local support.
Yeah. Yeah, it's from the locals, and we have those local groups in every city, and we have our own training And also we have very strong community ties through church or through temples. And I think they would be very good channels to educate people, the population, what to do to resist China's intervention. So recently, people are more and more aware of China. So you can see that people gathered together. They discuss about the information welfare. They um, they pay attention to and any fake news in the TikTok or in the media, and they try to train themselves. So I think those are very strong signs that to show that we have the will to against China's intervention. We don't want our free market. We don't want our free market to be intervened.
Well, this is quite inspiring, and I know that our friends in Ukraine also look to Taiwan. They're very concerned about Taiwan, and there have been offers from our Ukrainian friends to help with training on civil defense, how to assist your neighbors if you ever do come under attack. Let us hope it never comes to anything like that, but better to be ready, because then it's less likely to happen if you're properly prepared. And our Ukrainian friends are always speaking about Taiwan and how they feel this connection being threatened by a totalitarian neighboring state. Well, I'd like to then pose a quick question then about the role of public education. So my understanding, I don't read Chinese, so I rely on people who do, was that the books that had been translated by Hayek, by David Chow and others were very academic, and only a small segment of the population could read them. And that even the Chinese was quite sophisticated, high-level Chinese. Whereas Daoping Xia, or Xia Daoping, wrote in a more colloquial, accessible style that everybody could read the same ideas, but in more accessible style. Are you planning to do works both at an academic level, but also for public education in the normal everyday language of people?
Yes, sure. So just like what you mentioned, we have a seminar this June, and also we have the workshop, which was then the workshop will be for college students and even high school students. So we would like to translate those professional language to the common language, and to educate young people or about the about the about the idea of liberty. And also we hope to use the new media. I mean, like, we hope to produce some like films or the videos, short videos, and which and we hope to transmit our information through those new media. And because I am in a communication college, so actually my students are not econ major, but they are really strong in making films, music, or the videos. So I think I will work with them and try to find a creative way to educate people.
But let me then turn, before we take some questions from our participants around the globe, to the hybrid warfare that is currently being waged by the Russian state and the Chinese state, somewhat different ways, where it's not just military threats or economic coercion, as we saw with oil and gas in Russia and so on, but also flooding the information space with rubbish. And it's not like the old-fashioned information warfare said communism is better, dictatorship is better, fascism is better. This is more sophisticated. They undermine confidence in institutions of a free society. They promote a kind of postmodern cynicism. Nothing is true, is what they're saying to people. And so why defend anything? It consists of factual misstatements, and they can lie 1,000 times before you can respond to one lie. The asymmetry involved in this is quite strong. So I'd like to know just a few thoughts, maybe starting, Joy, with you, about how to counter information warfare against free societies.
I think this is a very difficult question, and I think that's also is on debate in the United States as well, because you are mentioning they are discussing whether they should ban TikTok, so to cut off one of the major resources of this disinformation. And we here in Taiwan, we are also discussing about that, but then it's about the thing about should we care more about the freedom of speech or the national security is more important, and we don't have an answer yet. And it's also very difficult. There's many multiple evidence suggesting that the Communist Party is using not just TikTok, but also other platforms to donate to these YouTubers, or to donate to these collaborators in Taiwan, and then to infiltrate Taiwan and to encourage more pro-China messages, so to speak, in general. But it's difficult in terms of law because it's hard to trace all this money, right? It's too vague. So that's the difficulty here. And also, we don't want to criminalize everyone. We don't want to convict any suspect that are maybe they are just expressing their own thoughts. Maybe they are not receiving any money from the CCP. But it's difficult to really pinpoint down that, yes, he is the one. So I think that's a challenge that we have all faced, and we are addressing that, but it's still ongoing. Yeah.
It's a challenge all around the world, and it has been for some time. I recall an essay in the Atlantic Monthly in 1940 by Karl Joachim Friedrich, who was an American academic, but originally from Germany, and he was very against National Socialism, against the Nazis. And he wrote The Poison in Our System. And he said the problem is, even then, they were facing this hybrid warfare from Nazi Germany. And he said, we need to respond without becoming like them. It's a big challenge. How can we maintain the free, open discussion and defend ourselves against this information warfare? And now it's a harder problem, and you're on the front line of that. I really respect what you're attempting to do. Let's turn to some of our questions that have been posed. And here's one from Romania, from Dr. Nikita. Does the porcupine strategy include also a defense by the whole population, like the Swiss model, the model of Switzerland, of arming the citizens as a reserve to be used in the event of aggression? Is there a right to keep and bear arms in Taiwan for civilians?
Well, I don't think we have the right as a normal citizen to keep any arms, but we are extending our military military services from 4 months to a year. So trying to expand the people that are reserves to be soldiers in the future. But it's very difficult to switch to the Swiss model in terms of that we all have the younger generations, they have their plans about their future, and then we are a democracy, so we have to respect their will. So what I can say is we're trying our best to move to a longer military services mentoring for these young adults to make them realize that we have to defend ourselves. And I believe that many of us trust this system, and we believe in this. Yeah.
Well, I could add in Lithuania, a friend, the former head of the Lithuanian Free Market Institute, Remigijus Šimašius, who became the mayor of Vilnius, was leading completely voluntary, so no conscription, no coercion, groups of citizens from teenagers up to grandmothers for civil defense training as voluntary matter. And he was a humble person in this way. He said, I'm not going to train you. I'm a lawyer. I'm going to be trained with you, and encouraging people to take seriously the defense of their country in the event of Russian invasion, which is something that they really are worried about. They see what has happened in Ukraine. So that's something that possibly could be considered in Taiwan as well, this voluntary defense, including using firearms.
I would like to address that a little bit, and then I think that also echoes to what Lucy has said before, is we do have several groups that are teaching ordinary citizens how to use arms and how to help other people when they are injured if there's a war in the future. So we do have these like small-scale groups all around Taiwan. It's more locally, it's more grassroots activities, but it's not from the central government, because the central government have elections. They cannot, ask people or require people to do whatever they want. So it's more like locally based grassroots community that we have this will to defend ourselves. And we are expanding that in the future. Well, we're expanding that in the near future. Yeah.
We have a couple of questions from Africa, from Georgia, from Canada, and elsewhere that are roughly the same question. So I'll formulate it, and that is, globally, CCP is also, Chinese Communist Party, working to extend their model, if you will, very actively, especially in Africa right now. The notion that there's a Beijing model, which means dictatorship, absolute suppression, elimination of minorities, extermination of dissidents, and state planning. And they're actively promoting this as a model of economic success. And then we see also in other countries, CCP advancing models, sometimes more subtle, undermining the ideas of democracy in Latin America, Europe, North America, and elsewhere. What advice would you give to people in other countries about countering this anti-liberty information warfare?
Oh, that's very difficult. But I would like to mention one fact that's more gloomy, sadly, is that China is exporting its systems of civilian, massive civilian systems to all, I think, at least 18 different countries. So that fits into this model that they teach dictators how to, control their citizens, so to speak. So it's very gloomy in that sense. And how can we counter that? How can we counter that? Well, I don't have a quick answer, but maybe one thing is maybe we can impose more economic sanctions about these weapons, because we know that they are used to violate human rights. They are doomed to violate human rights. So maybe we can keep track on all these different systems, but that's difficult to trace. And the other thing is that about the developed countries, so about this information, is to maybe work with Facebook, work with Google. How can we set up rules to really just crack down all this disinformation? How to control this disinformation? Because I think they have the responsibility to do that. They cannot just make all these profits from the people and then do not take any responsibility apart from that. And I think that's also the reason why the United States is considering to ban TikTok, because TikTok is definitely not going to control disinformation from the CCP. So probably that's one way to counter that. I don't know if Lucy has any thoughts about this.
Yes, I would say that a strong community the civil community is still the root to anything. So if we can sponsor any local community, then just do that. Like the female association at school, or the student association in the college. So I think the awareness can begin from a very local small group. When people in that group are aware of their own rights, then they will grow their will to resist any authoritarian party. Yeah. So I think that Taiwan has gone through this process. So I think the other country can do that too.
These are hard problems, and it's not embarrassing to not know the answer. I've not been convinced on the TikTok question yet. Maybe I can be, because I'm concerned about the state controlling our access to information. And this is the worry. We don't want to become more rigid in control to fight against it. So it's a hard problem, but we have more questions than we can get to here. That's a good position to be in, as well as some comments about how grateful people are and how much they admire you for standing up for liberty in Taiwan. And so I should just mention, I'm really looking forward to the formal public launch of the Taiwan Liberty Association this summer. It's going to be awesome. The people that I know in Taiwan are so focused, such a love of freedom that is evident, and an appreciation. Sometimes you don't always see it when you live in the country, how awesome Taiwan is, what you have achieved through your institutional reform and the tremendous prosperity and being a global leader in so many areas. It's very, very exciting, and I'm looking forward to seeing the launch of it. I'd like to mention that we're going to be updating people on this as we go along. And I'd also like to encourage people to subscribe to our Freedoms Champion. I mentioned a $25 or more donation to Atlas Network, and you can find the link in the chat box. We'll bring it delivered to your door on a regular basis. Also, I'd like to encourage people to stay tuned with Freedom Worldwide. We're going to be meeting with colleagues from all around the world who are doing exciting and awesome things like Joy and Lucy and their colleagues are doing in Taiwan. So is there one last word that you would like to have very quickly to share with a global audience? Lucy.
Well, I would like to add just one point reminded by Lucy, is that about the disinformation part. Actually, there are lots of grassroots communities here in Taiwan. They are maybe just a group of maybe 5 or 10 people, and they're traveling around Taiwan just to educate people how to read the news, how to really understand which part is probably false, which part that is more trustworthy. So that's the will and that's the efforts that have been made by numerous peoples in here in Taiwan. And I think that could probably be the route for others as well, because just a small group of 5 to 10 people, we can help as well. Yeah.
But that's a great note to end on, that critical thinking is an important part of the defense of a free society, and also an engaged citizenry who take seriously their obligations as citizens, who evaluate information, and who are aware that there are people with malign intent trying to undermine their freedom. So I'd like to thank both of you, Joy and Lucy, and please give my regards to your colleagues in Taiwan. Thank you for what you're doing. I'd like to thank all of our participants from all around the world for joining us, and I look forward to seeing you at the next Freedom Worldwide. Thanks for watching, and stay free.
Thanks for watching. If you enjoyed this edition of Freedom Worldwide, please help us support this program and our partners by making a tax-deductible donation to Atlas Network. And with your gift of $25 or more, we'll deliver a printed subscription to our Freedoms Champion magazine, full of exclusive stories about the amazing people of the worldwide freedom movement.